Opening mail packs. The video where I open my mail as if it's sealed boosters because I forgot what I ordered.
Hey, it's Leah, and I'm pretty excited about this mail pack that we're working on filming. It was originally going to be a mail pack, except that I decided I would go drive and pick it up because I kind of changed my mind and thought I'd have the opportunity to go visit a new local game store that I'd never been to because it was a 7-hour round trip drive. So it was pretty far away, and we had to take a day trip to go out and visit it. The store is called Paper and Plastic, and it was pouring rain the entire drive, so I didn't really take any photos. Not that my phone was available for that anyways, because it was being my GPS the entire time, so I made sure to conserve some battery so I could get home. So it wasn't too bad of a drive. We encountered some traffic around Chicago, but the rest of it was pretty smooth sailing. So here's a picture of their store that I could grab off the internet. It was a nice little store, and I got to meet the owner and talked about the order, and then I got to pack it up and take it home. So hop over. They have a website that you can go to. It doesn't look very exciting as a website. Like I'd expect to see a lot of color, but it had what I was looking for. And what I was looking for, because I collect Innistrad in complete sets, was complete sets. So we ordered a complete set and some showcase and some premium. So I got 3 complete sets of Innistrad that I'm planning on going through in the video. And then the showcase and the premium cover my different border types, and then I've got one of each regular, and then he also sells complete sets of, if it'll load, he sells complete sets of art cards that you can get as well. So I got a complete set of the Innistrad art cards, which I think is still not on the website. But it made for a pretty cool trip, and I was excited to get to visit a new store and just have a fun day out. So, yep, that's his store. Okay, we're gonna see what would have been in my mail pack, and because of the rain, I just brought a backpack and some my own deck boxes down with me. So he was gonna ship in cardboard long boxes, which would normally be fine, but I was happy to have my own boxes so that when I brought everything out in the rain, had everything pretty safe, zipped up in my bag in good boxes. We've got 2 commander decks that was originally part of my mail order. We'll get to those at the end of the video. That's my goal at the end there. And then we've got all the cards. Oh, here's my receipt. Got my receipt that says I spent a lot of money on Innistrad. That's basically what that says, so we're not going to worry about that right now. I'll pop all these open. So I guess there's gonna, they should be in 3 pretty distinct piles. So 1 pile per set. I'd have to sort out. So there's some cards. God, there's a mythic. It's just gonna be me sorting piles. Oh, I gotta flip them all over for the camera. Okay, flip them all. There we go. Let's see. Oh, there's some art cards. Separate the art cards, because I want to go through the art cards first. Stack everything up over here. We've got our tokens. The other half of the art cards. Upside down. I want half of them to be upside down, half of them be right side up. There. Are these all right side up now? They all look it. Okay. There's our art cards. Our stacks of cards. First, so what we ordered for the art cards, where we got the center, got the gold signature version of the art cards, so it's a complete set of 81 art cards, and they all have the gold signature on them. So looks like there's multiples by the same artist. Here's another pairing of them. I like this pink look. So I haven't seen any of the I've been avoiding spoilers and gameplay and general Magic YouTube-ness even, because I've just been so burnt out on Magic. I didn't want to have to go through all these cards and figure it out what I might want to. I knew I wanted to collect Innistrad because I've been collecting Innistrad in the past and I really enjoy Innistrad. But I'm just highly conflicted because I am so tired of all the product release and the feeling of missing out. I don't like that, and I just want to enjoy the cards at my own pace. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. So I didn't mind that this order came in way past release time, because I didn't want to do the work of putting it together. I was really happy to find a shop that would put this all together for me, and I didn't have to look at it till I was ready, and I'm feeling excited about it now that I get to finally see all of the cards and just go at my own pace and enjoy all the art the way I can react to it however I want. I haven't seen it in stores, haven't seen it online. Oh, this is a really cool looking one. Look at this cool card. I don't know what that is, but I'm excited for it. The zombie licking a brain in a jar. That's a pretty art. I like the colors in it. So I don't know what I'm going to do with these art cards just yet. I want to figure out kind of a nice way to display them. I don't know if that's going to be kind of fancy binder I might get, or I'll come up with something. Because I thought it'd just be really cool to do an art set. I know maybe not a lot of people care about these art cards, but I thought it'd be fun to have. It's a good way to get hyped up to look at some cards, right? To see the art for them. Ooh, cool looking dragon. I hope this is a Moonvale Dragon. I want it to be a Moonvale Dragon, because that was something that really... It was the Moonvale Dragon that inspired me to collect Innistrad in the first place. When it first came out, I saw the art of the Moonvale Dragon and thought, this is a set for me. Usually it's art that does it. when I decide I want to collect something. But I've really enjoyed the Innistrad horror world over the years. Although, admittedly, I don't like Eldrazi, so Eldritch Moon was not that great. I didn't think Innistrad needed Eldrazi. There are plenty of good horrors to fall back on. Classic horrors. We're going to find some cool cards in this set, I hope. I wonder why some of these art cards just had Planeswalker symbols on them. Like, could they not get the artist signature? Or... Here's one. Just has a little Planeswalker sign on it. Unless it's like an artist who had their name officially changed to an unpronounceable symbol, which would now be Planeswalker symbol. There's another one. I like these landscapes. I wonder if anybody's ever, like, framed these. Are these upside down? Do they look upside down? They didn't from the back sides, but I'll display them however I like. If the backs are printed upside down, that's not their fault. No, maybe they're right side up. Yeah, I'm just getting confused. You can get little frames, you can frame cards. So that's the art series that I got. I think they'll be pretty cool. I'll have to figure out what I'm going to display those in. Okay, so I guess we'll get to sorting out the cards. My technology is not perfect. Okay, so after all of that filming, because this video is really long and I went to start cutting things together, I found out that there was a camera glitch where I was sorting out all the cards and started sorting the commons and uncommons. Long story short, do you really care that you missed out on me sorting all of this stuff? Probably not. It's a long enough video, seriously. So there's only one interesting story that got told during all of that anyways that I'm just going to rehash, and it's about the card Duress. When I originally got a copy of Duress, it was from M10, and I didn't like that elf art with all the like spiky things pointing at her head. I hear a lot of people did, but I wasn't really into that. So I really liked the Duress from Cons with the dragon's maw screaming at the dude. That felt like Duress to me in the very essence of the word. But the new Duress in this set has a little dude all wrapped up in chains, and I think the art's really pretty, so that would make a good alternate copy of Duress for me. I was kind of excited about that. But there you go. We're going to play the error message and get back to sorting. Guess I'll have to put it together with software. That'll be kind of sad. Don't know how much we just lost. Not that the length of the video is going to be upset by this for any reason. It's going to be long enough. I might still have to do it in sections. So many cards. Planes. Sometimes I like to think that the color pie of white is what I play the least. And I know that the color pie of black is what I play the most of. But then when I mix black with white, you get this wonderful decks out of it. So I never quite know how I feel about white. I don't particularly like, if I was to pick up a stack of cards and peruse through them, I'm likely to just kind of blow by the white cards and then focus on the black ones. Usually things that black does is what I like to do in the game. At least to the S's. Hope there's a spider in this set. I don't think I've seen a spider go by yet. I want to collect some more spiders. Put them in the spider binder. That's a creepy looking art. Oh. This whole time I thought Stuffed Bear was one of those D&D cards. I guess I own it now. I didn't buy any of the D&D set. Like, I did a pre-release to try it, but it wasn't really for me. I like the things that Magic does. I know that D&D and Magic are not like, they're not completely unrelated to each other, but they've diverged greatly over the years. And Magic is, depending on when you entered, you're either a wizard or a planeswalker dueling with other wizards and planeswalkers. The werewolves on the back. And D&D is all kinds of classes working their way through dungeons. In Magic, you're never working your way through dungeons. That's just not a thing that was ever in Magic. It is now, thanks to that set, and maybe some people like it. Wasn't my thing. They don't feel any more like dungeons. Random. Out of order blue card? Okay. I don't know my alphabet either. I do, but when you stare at cards all day long, it happens to the best of us. I'm glad they reprinted Unruly Mob. unprinted. That would be a new challenge. They wish they could unprint a few things, I think. Although no matter who you ask, I think you always hear conflicting stories on that. So that's all of our commons. We've only got the one error there. We're just going to pack them aside a minute. So our piles don't get so big they tip over. You can go in there. Isn't safe. Stick those on the side. Okay. Now, do we pause the video here? We can keep going through the uncommons. It's fine. Oh. Gold cards. So, one of the things that I like about the both the worlds of Innistrad and the world of Mirrodin is that it's very solidly colored. My favorite decks tend to be mono-colored decks. I don't like to mix the colors much. It's just a personal preference. So I tend to enjoy sets that are more mono-colored. Mirrodin was even less colored by being mostly artifacts, so that there wasn't even color. That I greatly enjoyed. That's where I started playing, was Mirrodin, so maybe that has an influence on my preferences. There's a spider. We found one. Let's show it off. Got a spider. The fun part about collecting spiders is they print them in almost every single set, so every time a new Magic set comes out, you can be looking for a spider and probably find one. So I can collect some spiders, put them in my spider binder. Be a good day. Oh, that's a pretty back. I like that, dude. It looks cool. I don't know if I can imagine sorting cards all day to put this together. So I was excited to find a store that would do it for me. So the reason I got 3 sets instead of 4 is because that last card is mine to go out and pick which one I like to complete my play sets. Maybe I'll like the showcase version. Maybe I'll get a nice looking foil version of it. Oh, we haven't found a blue card. There we go. Could be whatever I like. Showcase gold card. Still working out how I feel about these showcase borders. They seem to be throwing me off on what color a card is, which means I didn't realize how much I depended on the border to tell me what a card was. Delver of Secrets. We needed more copies of that. Mostly I play Commander, and I would really enjoy some games of Pauper. But I think when I tried to introduce Pauper to my friends, I said, hey, you can play any commons you want and just build a fun deck. And then I went ahead and made some net decks. And they were, it wasn't a balanced game. And my friends just want to enjoy whatever cards they want to enjoy, and I like an occasional competitive game. I like to fool around with Commander too. I'm not interested in being highly competitive. I want to have a space to get to just play whatever cards I feel like playing and enjoy casting spells with friends. But then I do have an urge to play competitively as well. And Pauper made a nice outlet for that because the decks don't really, I don't have to pay a lot of attention to them to make them, like, keep up. They don't rotate. They're pretty good the way they are. About every 2 years I look in the bag of Pauper cards and figure it out if I need to add a card or something. So I've got 8 Pauper decks, 6 of which are competitive and 2 of which are just some really weird stuff. You can see, I think I made a YouTube video for both of the non-competitive ones. Yeah, about every 2 years I just do a little Pauper deck maintenance. Heirloom mirror. I've never met anybody who had a mirror as an heirloom. Technically, I have a mirror that I got from my parents, but they don't really think of it as like an heirloom. It was just something that was part of the bedroom furniture set. Is there one gold card per color pairing? It's feeling that way. Hopefully there's only one gold card per rare, too. Wouldn't want it to be too gold of a set. I feel like not a lot of red. Like, there should have been more red. And somehow I'm screwing it up. It's just all in the second half of the alphabet. There's a red card coming up. I think we're gonna break the video into a second half. because I'm going to need a break after these uncommons. Just a stretch. So I'm going to make videos. I don't really come into them with much of a plan. The mail packs aren't very hard. Open the mail, look at the cards, call it a video. This is a lot of cards, however. And it would have been a huge box to open. Rise of the Ants makes insects. We're in the S's. It's like a sign of progress. I guess the real curious question I would have is that any of the people who watch my YouTube actually made it this far. Because this is a long way to watch somebody sort cards and randomly talk. Ooh, Thermo Alchemist. That's a good reprint. Pauper uses this card in Burn Deck. Reprinted as an uncommon, but that still makes it obtainable if that's what you were building in Pauper. It's not unobtainable. Alright, getting to the end. The uncommons. To get to the interesting stuff, which is why we're going to take a break so that I don't just slog through it. You guys don't get a break unless I put in like an intermission panel, but you can pause the video whenever you need a break. That's easy. Well, easy for you. It's just a button push. For me, it's going to be like a weird jump scene. But not the kind that scares you, I hope. So there's our uncommons. No problems there. Gonna set them off to the side as well. Looks like they all evened out. There we go. And now all we have left are 3 piles with rares, mythics, maybe tokens. We'll figure it out after the break. It's intermission. Pause if you need to, for however long you need to, but come back, okay? Alright, back from intermission and ready to tackle the rares that we got. We're trying to set it up a little bit different because when you buy a $7 web camera, you do get what you pay for, and my images are horribly grainy. So we're going to try to have an image on screen, but it might involve me having to cut a lot of the time it takes me to search up images as we go through the cards. So my face might start to look choppy, but the rest of the video should be pretty stable as we progress. So we're just gonna... I'm not gonna order tons of cards like in this fashion, so hopefully we won't have to do this too much, but here we go. We're gonna talk about some of the rares. First up we have Adeline, is my best guess. Legendary creature that gets bigger the more creatures you have on the field and creates 1/1 tokens on attack. Seems okay to me. Would be mono white, which really isn't my forte. Sorcery to put counters on creatures with some flashback. Not in colors I usually play. Augur of Autumn. Can look at the top card anytime I want to, but I don't have to reveal it, and I can play lands off the top. Seems like something that's pretty basically green. Some bloodline culling, so target creature gets -5/-5, or creature tokens get -2/-2. Not sure how I would totally feel about this one. I like its modular choices. I like its mono black. It might make a deck. Briarbridge Tracker. Vigilance, when it enters, can investigate, so you get a clue token, and as long as you control a token, it's +2/+0, which is not that exciting to me. I suppose there's things you could do with this, but they're not. This card does not inspire me to go out and put it in a deck. Okay, Brutal Cathar. It's a human soldier werewolf. When it enters the battlefield or transforms, it exile a creature an opponent controls till it leaves the battlefield. So I guess it would keep exiling things, or maybe they come back for each transformation. On our flip side, we have First Strike and Ward to pay 3 life. Nightbound and Daybound. So white and red werewolf. I don't see any tricks to it. I think it's just a pretty basic... It's not like a low power werewolf or anything, but it's not saying to me that it's a high power werewolf. Burn down the house to do 5 damage to each creature or playwalker, or create some devils. I have a friend with a kind of a janky devil tribal deck that this would, I guess, be a new option for him, but I like the art. It's got devils, it's got fire. I think it should be one of those choose one, or, you know, maybe if I had the option I could do both. If I copy this spell, can I choose one of each mode? Suppose I'd want to do the damage before I put my devils out there, unless I just want them to die. Having the option to switch that back and forth would be cool. Can't stay away. Return target creature with mana value 3 or less from the graveyard right to the battlefield. If it would die, it gets exiled. But it does it doesn't have to go to your hand, which I like a lot. I think that's cool. Champion of the Parish. This is kind of a continuation of Champion of the Parish, which was in the original Innistrad, I think. Nobody quote me on that. Whenever another zombie enters the battlefield, then you get a +1/+1 counter on him. It seems really cool. Like, this would probably be fun in Standard. It would probably be fun in Zombie Tribal. It's cheap to play. It's mono black. Everything about this card is good. So here's a weird card with what appears to be a frog riding a duck, except that it's a sorcery and it creates a copy of a non-frog creature, except that it's a frog in the copy form. So we'll chalk this one up to different. Will I play it? I don't know. I suppose if I wanted to make a frog, I will. Hey, so Cursive Leeches is actually one of the cards that I was kind of early excited about its existence, because I think the leeches were just kind of funny, so this makes me think about those in a way. So the original leeches were, back in their day, a decently powerful creature, except that it made all your other spells of whatever the color of the leech was cost 1 more. So if you had the black leech, then all your black spells would cost 1 more black, which in today's magic scene is just downright horrifying. But this card kind of reminds me of that it's going to do damage to you, and it's going to so it'll come back and it'll be a life-linking creature, and then it'll be a curse, and it might attach to you, it might attach to a different player. You could kind of do what you wanted with it as you had to. Like, if you really wanted that 4/4, you could put it on yourself, I guess. It seemed like a really weird card, and it kind of amuses me just for that reason. Curse of Shaken Faith, and enchant a player, and they cast or copy spells that does damage. It's pretty simple. I've never built a curse deck. Curse of Silence. I'm guessing there's a lot of curses in this set, because now I found 3 of them, since I haven't looked up any of it. It enters the battlefield, name a card, and now it makes that card cost more, and if they actually do cast the card, then you get to draw a card. I don't know. Don't know about that one. Cursive Surveillance. If the beginning of enchanted player's upkeep, any number of target players other than that player draw cards equal to the number of curses on that player. Well, I bet this would be fun in a curse deck, or any number of target players other than that player. So you suppose you could only target yourself with it unless you felt like being friendly. This one's worded really weird. I don't know if I like it. I still don't see me making a curse deck. Denick, Pious Apprentice. Okay. Lifelink cards in graveyards can't be targets of spells or abilities. There's another card that does that. Sounds like Rest in Peace. No, that exiles things, doesn't it? I don't know. It's a legendary creature. I don't really see me using it for anything. This wouldn't fit in my weird win conditions Azorius colored deck. So currently I have no use for this dude. I guess you can play him transformed. He's got a backside. His backside is the same name as his front side. No, it's not. He's Apprentice on the front and an Apparition on the back. So whenever 1 or more cards is put into the graveyard, then he makes clue tokens. It triggers once per turn. Gets exiled if he goes away. He's a dude. here's a card I like. The Deserted Beach. I just flat out like that. I like what's going on in the art here of it kind of looks like a boardwalk. There's a lot of those around here, so it looks like home to me with dune grass all over and some sun and some water. So this card makes me happy. It's probably not a place where people on Innistrad would go to relax, though. So here's a sorcery with a lot of words. Destroy target artifact, enchantment, or land. If it was a land, something happens. A lot of things happen. Otherwise, if it's not a land, other things happen. This is one of those rares that's probably pretty cool, but at first glance, there are too many words on it for me to care, and then it has flashback, so you can do it again if one time around wasn't enough. But it looks like if you blow up a land, you get 2 basics onto the battlefield tapped. Otherwise, if you don't blow up a land, you get 1 basic onto the battlefield tapped. So if you target your opponent, you're also giving them more land, I suppose. Falcon Wrath Pit Fighter. Vampire, discard a card, and sacrifice a vampire. So it doesn't have to be this vampire, but this one would work. Draw 2 cards, and you could only activate it if an opponent lost life this turn. It seems like that second part of the clause wouldn't have really been necessary for this card, but it isn't a tap ability, so I suppose it can also swing and then kill itself, and on turn 2 you could draw 2 cards if you really wanted to cycle your hand. I don't know if I'm that excited about this. So, Fateful Absence. This looks pretty simple card. Destroy target creature or planeswalker and give your opponent a clue. Well, not necessarily opponent. You could get a clue if you blow up your own thing. I wouldn't need a clue to know where it went, though. So here's a literally sketchy looking vampire. I kind of like this black and white looking art here for Lorien Voldarian Scion. This looks like a card I would try to play. First strike at the beginning of post-combat main phase, look at the top X, where X is the amount of life lost. Exile 1 and put the rest on the bottom. You can then play the card. I think this would amuse me. Not sure what I would do with it yet, but it makes me want to think about it. Galvantic Iteration. I cast my next instant or sorcery spell, copy it, and choose new targets. Pretty simple. I actually have a deck that would be coming up that may or may not want this. It's really full of cards right now, so it's hard to gauge. Geist Flame Reservoir, where you cast an instant or sorcery spell, put a counter on it. Remove counters to deal damage, or exile the top of your library and play this card. Well, this seems a nice utility piece. I like that. So, Ghoul Caller's Harvest makes some 2/2 black zombies, except they've added Decayed so that zombies don't stick around. Probably because Zombie Tribal doesn't really need any more support, but X is half the number in just your graveyard, but rounded up. I kind of like it. I think it has nice flavor. I wish that the zombie tokens didn't have Decayed on them, but I also understand why they did it. Gisa Glorious Resurrector. If a creature an opponent control would die, exile it instead. Seems okay. Beginning of your upkeep, put all the cards exiled onto the battlefield under your control. They gain decayed. Makes sense in a way. It seems like another thing that I like, except I would probably get pretty annoyed if I was versus this card, but only if it was like what everybody was running. If I encounter it occasionally, I think it's fine. If you're a creature token deck, I suppose it doesn't really matter. So, really, if you're kind of a big creatures deck, this is probably a problem. But spells deck, not sure it's going to care. Token deck, not sure that's going to care. It would be an interesting card to try to build around, though. The Grafted Identity is an additional cost, sacrifice a creature, and then you control enchanted creature. It makes basic sense to me. Sacrifice a little thing, enchant a big thing, and now I have a big thing. Seems kind of cool. I like it. I like how it's costed. I think this is a good card. Graveyard Trespasser. Ward, discard a card. So you can only target it if you discard a card. I can't remember if Ward is an opponent's only thing or not. It probably is. When it enters the battlefield or attacks, exile a target card from the graveyard. If it was a creature, then there's a life swing. But it's each opponent, so they'd lose 3 and you'd gain 1. But there's more. Same ward, except on the back it's 2 cards get exiled instead of 1, and it's a little bit larger. That's the only difference. Hallowed Respite. Exile target non-legendary creature. Return it to the battlefield. If it entered under your control, it gets a counter, otherwise tap it. So this wants you to consider blinking your opponent's stuff to tap it down. I don't see that alternate mode being used often, but I'd like it in like that weird little clutch situation. Haunted Ridge, it's a pretty looking land. It enters the battlefield tapped unless you control 2 or more other lands, which is not, you just don't want it on turn 1 or 2. That's it. It's pretty and I like it. Alright, so here we have Jadar Ghoulcaller of Nephilia. We're gonna hope I'm fairly close on that. I kind of like his showcase black and white art going on here. So this kind of art reminds me of something where you get that black paper and you have to sketch the white lines into it until you get the piece of art you're trying to make. Some people are really good at it. Some people would probably get really frustrated with that. But I like some of the art direction on this. It doesn't necessarily say horror to me, but the art that they made out of it is nice. So, legendary creature. At the beginning of your end step, if you control no creatures with decayed, then you get a zombie with decayed. I wish it was the beginning of each end step so that you could perpetually use the zombie to block. Then it would remind me of Ophiomancer for zombies. I think that would have been really cool, but that is a very powerful card, so maybe they just thought they needed to pull it back a little bit. So you get 1 blocker. This technically still works. It would still work 1-on-1. More like an Ophiomancer. Too bad. Maybe the zombie doesn't have death touch. I don't know. It's not the most powerful of black cards, but it's nice. I don't dislike it. So here's a legendary creature that I probably can't pronounce this name of. We're going to go with Catilda, but I bet there's a couple different ways people would approach that. Protection from werewolves. Humans can add mana, and then for a bunch of mana, I can put +1/+1 counters on each creature I control. seems incredibly staple into green-white human tokens. It would be a perfect fit for that. It would probably make a pretty good commander. I don't see me building it. Green-white really isn't my color wheelhouse, but Lysa Forgotten Archangel. Legendary Angel. Flying lifelink, and whenever a non-token creature you control dies, turn it to its owner's hand at the beginning of the next end step. If a creature an opponent controls would die, exile it instead. I feel like I missed words. Whenever a non-token creature you control dies, so if I have it, then it goes to my hand. So it would die, go to the graveyard, we get to the end step, we return it to its owner's hand at the beginning of the next end step. What happens if it's not in the graveyard anymore? I guess you couldn't get it back. Light up the night. I feel like we're starting to get into phrases instead of names for cards. Suppose it's okay. Deals X damage to a target. X plus 1 if it's a creature or planeswalker. So for 1 red and 0x, I could do 1 damage to a target creature. Or for 1 red and 1x, I could do 1 damage to a target player. Flashback is really weird. Remove X loyalty counters from among planeswalkers. If you cast the spell this way, X can't be 0. So I'd have to pay 4. Pretend I have a planeswalker a minute. Remove a counter, and then X is equal to 1. So then, I don't know if I like that. It's different. I don't know if I like it. Ludwig Necro Genius. When he enters the battlefield or attacks, mill a card. So I guess that's self-mill. It's an X ability to exile creatures to transform him. X can't be 0, and you activate it as a sorcery. So I guess that means he's got a backside. Oleg Ludwig's Hubris. As it transforms, copy something that it exiled. It's a 4/4 legendary zombie in addition to some other stuff. Put counters on it. It seems like a card I would try at one point, but I don't know about it. Malevolent Hermit. It's a sacrifice to counter spell unless its controller pays 3. So, doesn't seem too bad. You can bring it back again. I guess that's pretty cool, but it's going to come back on this side, which is going to give it flying, and non-creature spells you control can't be countered. And then if it dies, it's exiled instead. So I like what it comes back as. I think this is actually a pretty cool card. I think I like that one. Mask of Gristlebrand. So flying lifelink, and when it dies, you can pay X life and draw X cards, where X has to be its power. So if you equip this to like a 1/1, when it dies, you can pay a life and draw a card. But if you equip it to a 7/7, 7 life for 7 cards. And since it's a dies trigger, I suppose you could keep using it. Piece of equipment. Stick around for hopefully a little bit. And then the life link will help you keep up with the life to pay for your card. So overall, I think it's a kind of a pretty cool card. Memory Deluge. Look at the top X cards, where X is the amount of mana spent to cast this spell. Oh, because it's got flashback, so you'd either look at the top 4 or the top 7. Put 2 into your hand and the rest on the bottom in any order. Seems solid. Seems like a fine card. Oh, Old Stick Finger. Oh, this card I've heard of even trying to avoid hearing about cards. But I had no idea what it does, so I guess I'll find out. Cast this, reveal cards until you reveal X creature cards. So if I pay 3 a black and a green, I suppose I'd reveal cards until I reveal 3 creature cards. Put all the creature cards revealed this way into the graveyard and the rest on the bottom. So equal to number of creature cards in my graveyard? Just my graveyard. So then he would, if he's the first creature of the game, he is going to come in as a 3/3 because that's all the creature cards that would probably be in my graveyard. He could come in, the longer the game, the bigger he gets, I guess. He seems alright. Seems like something I'd want to put in a Muldrotha deck, but other than that, maybe I'm missing something, but I like his self-mill aspect. The Overgrown Farmland. It's a land. Unlike the first couple lands, this one isn't totally doing it for me in the art category. It's not in colors I tend to play. I'm sure it's a fine card. I do think it's kind of pretty looking in this full art version. Maybe that's the version I should have pulled up, but yeah, it's a land. So here's a card. I have no idea how to say that. Patrician Geist? Patrician? I really have no idea. I could be right. I could be really far off. So it's a Geist, but flying, other spirits get +1/+1, and spells you cast from the graveyard cost 1 less, which is a nice all-around set of abilities for a blue 2/2 creature, I feel. So I like him. Pithing Needle. I didn't really need Pithing Needle. I already have my copies from M10, but it's part of the set, so I guess I've got more Pithing Needles now. You name a card, and then the named card stops working on the battlefield. They can still cast it, I suppose, if they want, but activated abilities of the card. So, like, if you were to name a Planeswalker, then you can't activate the loyalty abilities of a Planeswalker, kind of like that. That's about it. Reckless Stormseeker appears to be a werewolf, and then at the beginning of combat, target creature gets +1/+0 and has haste till end of turn. I like to see werewolves that are actually exciting on their day side, because +1/+0 and haste is kind of cool. We'll give it an okay for the haste, but that's its day side. So we get to its night side here, which is +2/+0 trample and haste. So that's not that much better. This is a cool lightning looking werewolf though. So I like that. I like his lightning side. It looks like on this side. It's different lightning. I don't know, maybe I like this one better. I could be digging this art. So he gets a pass. He's cool enough. Alright. Carlos. No. Yes. Rem. Carolus? Flying Haste Knight. The spell would deal damage to you or another permanent. Prevent that damage. Okay. The spell would deal damage to a permanent or opponent controls. An opponent or an opponent's permanent. It deals that much +1. So this would survive Blasphemous Act and make Blasphemous Act do more damage. I can get behind that. I think that's kind of cool. Also, with this human riding on this bird, this makes me think that frog card from quite a bit earlier in the video is a copy of this person on the bird here. Rite of Harmony, or an instant. Whenever a creature or enchantment enters the battlefield under your control, draw a card. So I guess if you're planning a big turn, this is a way to make your turn even bigger, because you'd keep drawing and then maybe you can keep playing more. Seems alright. I'm not sure I'm quite the deck designer to make use of it though. So here's a pretty land. Rockfall Vale. I like its very misty look. Like all of the others in this series, you want to, if you control 2 or more other lands, it just comes in untapped. It's not fetchable, but that's fine. I think it's a very nice land. Cyrith? The Viper's Fang. It's another one I might not be saying correct. The other tapped creatures you control have Death Touch. So I guess it would give your attackers Death Touch, but there's probably a few other interesting things that even I can think of to do with that. The untapped ones have Hexproof. Okay, seems pretty legit. And then you can tap another target creature, or untap another target creature you control. So you would tap Sarith, untap a target creature or land. Seems okay. Seems cool. This is a, it says it's a human warlock. It looks kind of like, oh, maybe it's just a dude with a really long snake. I thought it looked more like it might be a Naga, but I think I can see his leg there. Because Nagas would be new for Innistrad, but I don't know. I like it for what it is. Shipwreck Marsh is another one in the land series. The full art one looks a bit dark to me to fully feel what's going on there, and I like the regular misty one. Maybe I just have some bad glare on it from my angle. Yep, it's land. Sigarda's Splendor. It's an enchantment. Take a note of your life total when it enters the battlefield. Oh boy. Beginning of your upkeep, draw a card if your life total is greater or equal than the last noted. Oof. Then change the note. Whenever you cast a white spell, gain a life. So as long as you had more life than you did the last time you wrote down how much life you had, you get to draw a card. It's white. It draws cards. it gains life. I really don't have any issues with this card. It's just kind of worded funny. But I like it. So Siphon Insight is an instant with an awful lot of words on it, and then flashback, so you can do whatever all that is twice. As far as opening rares would go, if I was just to open it, it would probably be immediately ignored for having too many words, but I guess I'll dive in and find out what it does. Look at the top 2 cards of target opponent's library. Exile one face down, put the other on the bottom. You can look at the exiled cards, spend mana of any color, blah blah blah. So you get to look at 2 cards from your opponent's library, and you can exile one and choose to put the other into play at some point later in the game. I don't see me playing this, but it doesn't seem like it's a bad card or anything. So Slaughter Specialist, by the title, didn't sound like it would be a creature to me. I guess it sounded like it would be an instant, but it turns out it's actually a vampire warrior. It just doesn't sound like a creature. Maybe it does after I say it enough times. When Slaughter Specialist enters the battlefield, each opponent creates a 1/1 white human. When a creature opponent controls dies, this gets a 1/1 counter. So it's a 3/3. It's definitely set up at pods of 4 level, where you get 3/3 of power, and then your opponents collectively also now have 3/3 of power. But it does seem kind of cool in the fact that when creatures an opponent's control dies, it would collect all these counters on it. So overall, I like it as a creature, I think. Slogurk, the Overslime. Now that's a title that says he's a legendary creature. I mean, most things with a name and then comma title seem to say that they're the title of a legendary creature, but I particularly like his name. He's an Overslime. It works for me. He also has the appearance of a ship as slime, or as slime attacking a ship, but I'd like to think that he's part ship. That would amuse me more. So trample, whenever a land is put into your graveyard from anywhere, he gets a counter. Remove 3 counters, return him to his owner's hand. When Slogurk leaves the battlefield, return up to 3 target lands from your graveyard to your hand. So I guess there's an occasional reason to pick him up. So, seems interesting. I'm really not sure what I would do with it. I want to do something with it because I think this seems like a really cool creature. I just don't know what. Sludge monster. That sounds like a monster to me. I believe that the creature type of horror is 100% correct while knowing nothing else about the card. When Sludge Monster enters or attacks, put a slime counter on up to 1 other target creature. Non-horror creatures with slime counters lose all abilities and have base power and toughness 2/2. So I guess he'll be on the battlefield and slime things. I feel like the name is more exciting than the ability, but the ability is unique at the same time. Smoldering Egg. So it's a dragon egg. But there are some decks that care about eggs. There are lots of decks that care about dragons. If you needed a small dragon, it works too. Defender, whenever you cast instants or sorceries, it gets ember counters equal to the amounts it casts something. If it's 7 or more, transform it. Oh, it flips over. So become a dragon. I want it to become a dragon now. That's good. It becomes a dragon. Ashmouth Dragon. Flying, whenever you cast an instant or sorcery, deals 2 damage to any target. Okay, so it becomes a pretty cool dragon. You just have to hatch it from this little egg. I can be on board with that. I think it's cool. So Storm the Festival is a sorcery with a pretty expensive mana cost and an even more expensive flashback. Look at the top 5, 2 permanents, 5 or less. They go right onto the battlefield, put the rest on the bottom. So for your high mana cost, you're likely to get something for that. But it seems like a pretty big gamble to me. I'd have to have a deck built very specific, I think, for this, because most of my decks, I think this would be very unexciting. The Sungold Sentinel is a human that enters or attacks, exile any target card from any graveyard. Choose a color. Gains hexproof, can't be blocked. Well, so the first ability and the second ability don't really seem to relate to each other at all. Seems odd. I don't know how I feel about this card. So the Suspicious Stowaway, which is a rogue werewolf human, because I guess werewolves are just coming in all colors now. It can't be blocked, and when it deals combat damage, draw a card and discard a card. So let's see, what kind of a werewolf are you? Okay, you're a green werewolf. You still can't be blocked. And whenever it deals combat damage to a player, draw a card. Oh, draw a card and discard a card on this side. Draw a card on the green side. Seems like it would have made more sense to go from green to blue. I fail to understand this werewolf completely. Seems like an odd werewolf it is. There's a card called the Celestus. It's a legendary artifact. It starts a day-night cycle. Can add a mana. You can swap between day and night as a sorcery. And then when you swap, you can gain a life. You may draw a card, and if you do, you discard a card. So, there's a lot going on this that could do interesting things. I kind of like it as a mana rock, but I'd only want it in a couple different kinds of decks. It's not too hard to track the day and night if you just put the day-night tracker next to this thing. Yeah. I don't dislike it, but I'm not having strong feelings for it either. So, Tolar Dire Overlord. It's a legendary human werewolf. So whenever a wolf or werewolf deals combat damage to a player, you can draw a card. At the beginning of your upkeep, if you have 3 or more wolves and or werewolves, it becomes night, and you can then transform any number of human werewolves. So it forces the old ones to transform, I guess. And when you transform, now it still has the draw for damage thing, and then it's got kind of a wolf or werewolf version of Keswick Wolf Run. So it seems alright as a card. I don't dislike it. I wish werewolf transforming was a little less complicated. I wish I could just play a card that had the word moon on it, and ta-da, now they've all flipped to their werewolf sides, and they stay there until you get rid of my moon card. that would have made me happy, but I think we need a lot more kinds of moon cards in order to make that really functional. Tovolar's Huntmaster. It's another human werewolf that enters the battlefield. It comes in with 2 green wolf tokens. It starts pretty big. And it gets bigger. Now it's a pack leader. When pack leader enters the battlefield or attack, so when they transform, do they re-enter? I think they do. Then it gets 2 more wolves. And you can pay to do the fight with your wolves and werewolves against a target creature you don't control. And it's even bigger. So, seems kind of cool. There's a lot of large werewolves. Sometimes I think there could be room for some smaller werewolves, but smaller werewolves are weird. Alright, first we had Triskaidectophobia, the fear of the number 13, but now we have Triskaidectophile, the human wizard who probably loves the number 13. You have no max hand size, and if you have exactly 13 cards in your hand, you win the game. You can pay to draw a card, but you'd have to play the cards out in order to get rid of them because you have no way to discard down to exactly 13. Doesn't seem too challenging, but you'd have to, it's definitely a target card. And it's not a real big creature. It's a card I think I'd try. Unnatural Growth. There are a lot of green pips on that card. It really wants you to be pretty dedicated to green. Beginning of each combat, double the power and toughness of each creature you control till end of turn. That's pretty big in some decks. There's a picture of a werewolf on there, but it makes me think about hydras for sure. Vadric Astral Archmage. It's another one of those black and white sketch cards. I kind of like this just from looking at it. It seems kind of cool. Let's see what this human wizard does. Starts the day-night cycle. Instants and sorceries cost X less to cast, where X is equal to his power. And as the day-night cycle flips, he gains +1/+1 counters. Seems cool. I don't dislike it. I'm not sure. It seems like a straightforward concept of what to do, and I kind of want to just put it in the 99 of something else, but I can't think about what that would. Vanquish the Horde. This is a pretty expensive looking sorcery, but oh, okay. Just 1 less for each creature on the battlefield, so it's like a blasphemous act combined with the wrath of God. I like that, and that could bring it down to like 2 white, which I feel is very cost effective nowadays. Wake to Slaughter. It's another expensivest looking sorcery. Choose up to 2 target creature cards in your graveyard. An opponent chooses one, it goes to your hand. The other one goes to the battlefield under your control in haste and gets exiled. So they can pick one to deal with for a turn and then one that you can have to use later, I guess, but you get to pick which 2 they get to pick from. The flashback is nice. I think this is kind of a cool card actually, but I don't know. I don't have a use for it yet, but I like it. Okay, Willow Geist. It's a tree folk spirit. And a 1/1 for 1 with trample. I like 1/1s with trample. I think they're funny. Whenever one or more cards leaves your graveyard, put a 1/1 counter, and when it dies, you gain life equal to its power. Cards have to leave my graveyard to make it bigger. I think that one's interesting. It's intermission. Pause if you need to, for however long you need to, but come back, okay? Alright, back from intermission and about to do the mythics, but if you've made it this far in my mail pack opening here, here's a code. Just pause the video and go have some packs on Arena. Okay, we're gonna start looking at the mythics now that I got. First one up is Arlen the Pack's Hope, and this is a planeswalker, probably for werewolves. It creates wolves. She creates wolves. Till your next turn, you can cast creature spells as though they had flash, and they enter with counters on them. It's kind of handy. Nightbound side adds mana. Till end of turn, becomes a werewolf with trample, indestructible, and haste. So this would be like a second planeswalker that's able to turn into a creature, so something that replaces Gideon in that respect. So that's actually kind of cool. I think I like that. It's a new option there. Okay, we have a Bloodthirsty Adversary, which definitely looks like a vampire. So haste and an awful lot of text. Enters the battlefield, you can pay 2 and a red any number of times. Well, that'd be a lot of mana really fast. You pay this cost 1 or more times, put counters. So 2 and a red per counter. Then exile up to that many instants and sorceries with mana value 3 or less, copy them. You can cast any number of the copies without paying their mana cost. That's probably not any number of times per copy. That's probably if I exile and copy a Brainstorm and a Sign in Blood, I don't have to use them all. I can use both if I want. So, seems okay, but that payment on enter would make this really hard to figure out, because I would put it in my mana curve at 2, but I probably don't want to cast it for less than 5 or 8. That adds up really fast. And then I have a 4/4 for 8 and 2 spells. Not sure about that one. A Consuming Blob. For 3 and 2 green, and we've got a star over star plus 1. So power is equal to card types in your graveyard, and toughness is equal to that plus 1. So like a Termagoyf, I guess. Beginning of your end step, create an ooze. This creature is... oh, it's a star over star plus 1 ooze. So it kind of... it doesn't quite replicate itself, but it makes tokens almost of itself. Those tokens just don't make tokens. Sure, seems fine. Yeah, seems fine. An Enduring Angel. Flying, double strike. I have hexproof. It says you on the card, but it specifically means me. The life total would be reduced to 0. Instead, transform it, and then you have a life total of 3. If it transform, then if it didn't transform this way, you lose the game. I guess seems odd. Flying, you have hexproof. Power and toughness are equal to your life total. Whenever it attacks, double your life total. It doesn't transform back, so I guess maybe if there's a card that would force it to transform, then you would lose the game. Odd card. Not sure I'm going to put it in my Alt Win Cons deck. It would fit in there, but I like the Alt Win Cons to have to combine multiple cards together, and this doesn't. Alright, it's a hostile. I think I like that just on its name. It adds a waste, or colorless, but I like waste. Sacrifice a creature, put a soul counter. There are 3 or more, remove it and transform. Activate it only as a sorcery. You untap it when it transforms. So let's see. Once Gatherer brought them both up for reasons I can't explain. It becomes a Creeping In. Whenever Creeping In attacks, you may exile a creature card from your graveyard. Which I guess you'd have a few because you sacrificed them. If you do, each opponent loses X and you gain X, where X is the number of creature cards exiled. So every time you do this, and then you can pay 4 to phase it out. That's different. Paying for creature phasing. I guess I like it. I'd probably try it. Okay, Intrepid Adversary. 3/1. Human Scout. Lifelink when it enters the battlefield. Oh, this is another one. I can pay any number of times, put counters on it. Just get +1/+1 for each counter on it. So as long as I pay in a whole bunch, it'll make my team bigger, which seems kind of cool for like a white aggro deck. And seems like it might scale okay in Commander. Maybe not great, but it seems okay. The lifelink helps, and you can proliferate any kinds of counters, so you could proliferate Valor counters. It would have been much more powerful if you could have put +1/+1 counters on it, and then creatures got power equal to those +1/+1 counters. That would have been much more powerful, so I don't know why they are holding back on this card. Okay, so we have Jaren, Corrupted Bishop. It's a 2/3 cleric. Whenever he enters the battlefield or another human I control dies, lose a life, create a human token. Okay, so a non-token dies and then you get a token. Target human you control gains lifelink. At the beginning of your end step, if you have exactly 13 life, you can transform him. Okie dokie. Let's see what's on the other side here. Another one gathered brought me both of them. Ormondal the Corruptor. Flying, trample, lifelink, 6/6 demon, sacrifice a creature to draw a card. So I guess if you sacrificed enough non-token humans, now you have a bunch of token humans, you can start to sack and draw a whole bunch of cards at once. But that's a pretty low life total to get to commander to start working your way back up from. But it is a black card, so I want to do it. This looks like the kind of card that I would probably build one of my mono black decks around. I think I like this one. There's things to do, and I'm going to die trying to do them. And it's going to be pretty cool. Alright, we have Liar, Disciple of the Drowned, which is a 3/4 human wizard. Spells can't be countered, so I can't counter my opponent's stuff and they can't counter mine. It's different. Okay. It seems like kind of the opposite of blue, but it feels right too. Each instant and sorcery in your graveyard is flashback, costs equal to what it already costs. So, alright. I don't know if I would try to specifically build a deck around this. He seems more like a utility piece to me. But, it seems okay. Okay, Lord of the Forsaken. There's another big 6/6 demon with I like his art. I'm liking that to start with. Flying, trample, sacrifice another creature, so he can't sacrifice himself. Target player mills 3 cards. Not specifically exciting, but something I would put into a couple black decks. Pay a life. Pay 1 life, get 1 mana. Spend this to cast spells from your graveyard. Okay, seems cool. Not the kind of ability I was thinking about for some of my black decks, which usually want to bring creatures in and out, and usually those creatures don't have a way to cast themselves out. So I guess I hadn't thought about finding cards with that ability on it before, but I like it. Moonvale Regent is a 4/4 dragon with flying, and whenever you cast a spell, you may discard your hand. If you do, draw a card for each of that spell's colors. I suppose if you're out of cards anyways, anything's good, right? As long as you're very colorful. When Moonvale Regent dies, it deals X damage, where X is the number of colors among permanents you control. So the most it'll do is 5, because colorless isn't a color. But that's still good, I think. I think this card is a nice card. So the Moonvell Dragon from the original Innistrad was the reason I started collecting Innistrad cards in the first place, so I'm happy to see a callback to it. I thought the art was really pretty, and I decided that I liked the set, and I think this is another pretty card, and I'll probably hunt it down in a nice foily printing of it. Here's another card I'm going to question if I'm saying it right, because it looks like it says Poppet Stitcher, but I feel like it wants to say Puppet Stitcher, but it says Poppet. It's a 2/3 human wizard. When I cast an instant or sorcery spell, create a zombie. If you control 3 or more zombie tokens, I can transform it. Okay. Didn't realize it had a backside. Ooh. Becomes a factory. So on the backside, it becomes an artifact. Creature tokens lose all abilities and a base toughness 3/3. That gets rid of the decayed, so then they don't die, which is nice. Beginning of your upkeep, you may transform Puppet Factory. So then it would flip back. So then you could cast instant and sorcery stuff to get more zombies. And both triggers are at the beginning of upkeep. I think I'd like to play with this card. It sounds fun to play with. I don't know what to put it in right now. I don't think it requires you to be zombie tribal. I think it could be bigger than that. And I would have to go exploring for that. Primal Adversary. So we have a 4/3 wolf. Trample. Oh, you can pay any number of times type creature. Put that many 1/1 counters for all the times you pay, then untap that many target lands you control. Wait. No. Then that many target lands you control are wolf creatures with haste that are still lands. So then it doesn't end at end of turn. You can just turn your lands into wolves. I have concerns. It's probably pretty cool in something like Standard as... Well, no, it wouldn't even make a good finisher. You'd have to have a whole bunch of mana to turn all your lands into wolves. Which then a board wipe will kill all your lands. So you'd have to plan around that. Indestructible lands, I guess? And you have indestructible land wolves. That sounds like a cool word. Land wolves. Sigarda, Champion of Light. So we've got Flying Trample. Humans get +1/+1, but she's not a human, she's an angel. And then this is one of them that has the Coven ability on it. She attacks 3 or more creatures of different powers. Look at the top 5 of your library. You can reveal a human and put it into your hand and the rest on the bottom. So the first thing says screams human tribal in green and white. But I think if I dig a little deeper, there could be some other interesting stuff to do with this card too. See, Guardian Savior. Here's another big angel. 3/3 flying. It enters the battlefield. If you cast it, return up to 2 target creatures. Mana value 2 or less from graveyard to battlefield. So if it enters and you didn't cast it, get nothing. You get a 3/3 flyer. Enters and you did cast it, that is a direct to battlefield. And I do like that. It seems pretty good. The Spectral Adversary. The 2/1 with flash and flying. Oh, here's the blue version of pay this any number of times. It gets +1/+1 counters because everything but the white one got +1/+1 counters. And then up to that many other target artifacts, creatures, or enchantments phase out. Do they, I guess phasing, if you have phasing, you come back on the upkeep. But if you didn't have phasing, if something just phases something out, it comes back, right? I like to think it comes back. I guess I'll have to figure that out later. Sunstreak Phoenix. Flying 4/2, which seems normal for a phoenix, and I kind of like its crane-looking art. If it's neither day or night, it's day when it enters. Night. So whenever the day-night cycle flips, you can pay 1 in a red. If you do, it returns from your graveyard to the battlefield tapped. Well, it's a phoenix with a condition. I thought about building a Phoenix deck, but this probably wouldn't make the cut because I wouldn't want to keep track of the day-night just to play a Phoenix out of my graveyard. So, it seems odd. Don't know how much use I'll get out of this one. Tainted Adversary. It's a 2/3 with Death Touch and a zombie. It has taken me generally too long to figure out that there's a series of cards in the Mythic section that I can pay some amount any number of times and put that many +1/+1 counters on them, except for the white one. But they all have the word adversary in the name, I think. I should have figured that out slightly sooner. With this one, when you pay that, you create twice as many zombie tokens with Decayed. Okay, so if I pay 1 in a black, when it enters the battlefield, I can pay 2 in a black. But it is an ETB trigger, so it's not like I always have to be casting it. I could blink it and get that extra payment. So if we pay 2 in a black, we get a 1/1 counter, so we then have a 3/4, and we get 2 2/2 black zombie tokens. As far as a zombie deck goes, this is probably a useful card at the paying it once category. So I think I would run this if I was a zombie deck and needed a card. Seems okay. I'm still not sure about these pay as many times as you want, because that does add up pretty quick. Well, it turns out I guess there's a Teferi in this set. This is Teferi who slows the sunset. Well, I really hope that means he screws up with the day-night cycle or stops the day-night cycle. But I guess let's read all of this text. There's a lot of it. Choose up to 1 target artifact, up to 1 target creature, and up to 1 target land. So you could choose any or all. Untap the chosen permanents that you control, tap the chosen permanent you don't control, and then randomly is shoved on there that you gain 2 life. Seems not sure what's up with the gain 2 life, but I guess it's on there to add white. So at a minus, look at the top 3 cards of your library, put 1 of them into your hand, and the rest on the bottom of your library in any order. So kind of brainstorm like? No, not quite brainstorm, but you look at 3, you take 1. I don't think there's any like, maybe there's a spell that puts them on the bottom instead of putting them back. So you get an emblem. Untap all permanents you control during each opponent's untap step, and you draw a card during each opponent's draw step. 2 separate sentences. It looks more like it could be 2 emblems, but I guess they'd be printed on the same emblem. I don't use Teferi much. I've never built a Super Friends deck. It seems like a pretty powerful card. 4 starting at 4, but... And I could untap some creatures to defend Teferi. 1 creature. And if one of my creatures is an artifact, that's like 2 creatures. Or tap down an attacker. But it's just going to untap. Yeah, I guess it seems alright. Okay, Meat Hook Massacre. That seems like a horror card. When it enters the battlefield, each creature gets -X until end of turn. So it's 2 black and an X. That's where it's wrong. Whenever a creature you control dies, each opponent loses a life. Whenever a creature an opponent control dies, you gain a life. Well, I like the life swing opportunities on this card. Guess if I'm gonna wipe out the board, this is kind of a cool way to do it. I'd probably run this card. I think I like it. Wrenn and 7. So another planeswalker with a lot of abilities. I never used Wrenn and 6 much, but I guess we'll find out what Wrenn and 7 does. Reveal the top 4 cards of your library. Put all the lands revealed this way into your hand and the rest into the graveyard. Seems green-blackish to me. Put any number of land cards from your hand onto the battlefield tapped. How could I abuse that ability? I shall think of ways. Or I shall try to, anyways. Create a green tree folk creature token with reach, and this creature's power and toughness are equal to the number of lands you control. Okay, seems fine. Could start with a little tree folk, and it could grow bigger. Return all permanent cards from your graveyard to your hand. You get an emblem with you have no maximum hand size. Well, I think that's all in the return part, because having no maximum hand size isn't too challenging to get already. I feel like there should be a black mana pip somewhere on this card. It does an awful lot of graveyard for green. I want to add a black mana pip. I would feel better about this card with a black mana pip on it. That, and I like black. So, 2 last sections of cards to go through now before we get to commander decks and hopefully the end of this extremely long video is one of the sets of cards I ordered. The premium set came with a set of the cards you would get out of the set boosters that were the commander, just additional cards put into the market style. So, gonna take a look at those a minute. First up, we have Avason's Memorial, an indestructible artifact with other legendary permanents you control have indestructible. Seems pretty cool. Costs 8, mono white. I could see me occasionally finding a use for this, but right now I can't think of one. So, Cursive Obsession. Boy, they really wanted a lot of curses in this set. Although this art's kind of cool. I kind of like this art. This reminds me of an Eldritch Horror style art. So I think I like this card. Just without knowing what it does. Enchant player. Beginning of enchanted player's draw step, that player draws 2 additional cards. At the beginning of enchanted player's end step, that player discards their hand. I don't know what I want to do with this, but I do like this card. I would completely enchant myself with this so that I can draw extra cards, even though I lose a bunch of cards. But as long as I'm playing the cards, it's just like a really fast filter. I just play the best of whatever I have every turn and then not worry about my opponent's turns, because I guess I won't have any cards. Could always couple this with Library of Lang, and if something forces you to discard a card, then you can choose if it goes back on top of your library or in your graveyard. I think that was the wording on that card. I'd have to double check. It's been a while since I looked at that, but I always thought that was a cool card. Eloise Nephalia Sleuth. Boy, I hope I got all that right. Seems to be pretty good human rogue. Whenever another creature you control dies, you get to make a clue token. And whenever you sacrifice a token, you get to surveil. I think I could see myself enjoying this card. It's got two abilities that could work together or be built in some different directions. It's pretty generic. I don't know if I would use it as a commander. It seems more like something I could put in a 99. Yeah. I don't know. It doesn't inspire me to do anything right now. Kylar. Sigardian Emissary. Well, we just looked at a 4/4 that was a human rogue that cost 5, but this is a 2/2 that's a human cleric that costs 5. I'm currently preferring the 4/4, but let's see what you do. Whenever another human enters the battlefield, put a +1/+1 counter on Kylar. Other humans get +1/+1 for each counter on Kylar. Wasn't this everything I wanted that white card to do? Like, quite a while ago? The one that, though, got the Veiler counters instead of the 1/1s like everything else. So here's what I wanted that white card to be. This one makes more sense. So all this does is make me more mad at the white card, I think. Green and white still isn't... Someday I gotta build something green and white just so I can say that I do play it instead of I don't really play it. But I guess everybody has their preferences. So I think this is a really good card. It's what I wanted earlier in the video and didn't know existed. Still not... This isn't what I would use as a commander. This looks more like a utility piece to me. Lenore? Autumn Sovereign? I like all the floating pumpkins in this art. I think these cards were made just to challenge my ability to pronounce names. So, hope I got that right. This is another A+ for me on art. So we have a 0/4 human noble. Beginning of combat, put a 1/1 counter on a target creature you control. And if you control 3 or more creatures with different powers, draw a card. So you'd get to draw a card right before combat. This make, like, if this was my commander, this would be a deck filled with combat tricks. Especially things I could use on my turn, because I'm likely to draw up a combat trick before anybody else would have a chance to. There's a very small window in which I would lose that combat trick or the hidden knowledge of that combat trick between when I get it from my deck due to the draw and when I'm ready to use it because it's a combat step. So I like the design of this card. I like this one more than the other one. I might try this one. I don't know what kind of combat tricks are even in green and white because I never play in those colors very often. Green I definitely dabble in more than white because it's a good supplemental color for anything else you want to do, which then takes over the deck doing all the things you wish you were doing in the other color. So sometimes I just actively try to avoid green. But yeah, I think this card's pretty cool. Lindy? Cheerful Tormentor? Or is it Lind? Do you pronounce the E? Is there some sort of secondary lore story that's going on with all these ladies here? I think that'd be kind of cool. I'd read it. So a 2/4 human warlock for a Grixis and a 1 in a Grixis. Death Touch. When a curse is put into your graveyard from the battlefield, return it to the battlefield attached to you at the beginning of the next end step. So if a curse somehow dies, then it pops onto you. At the beginning of your upkeep, you may attach a curse attached to you to one of your opponents. So it just kind of cycles your curses around, but sometimes you get them. If you do, you draw cards, so then you'd get more cards. I don't know if this particularly appeals to me. I've never played a curse deck, though. That hasn't appealed to me. Maybe that might be my lackluster on the card. The art's nice. It's a weird card, so that's cool. There's an awful lot of really scary curses out there, but I guess they're in white, so they wouldn't be in this. I don't like the white ones. I don't want to be hit by the white ones. We'll put it that way, because the white ones just kind of shut off your ability to play the game sometimes, so I guess it's a good thing that there's not white on this. I think that's all my thoughts on that. Visions of Dominance. Well, that looks like the Gitrog monster, except it's a reflection of a cute little frog. I like all the lily pads. So, another good art card that I enjoy. A +1/+1 counter on target creature, then double the counters. I would be good with playing this card. 3 to put a counter and then double the counters. I think that's 3 for 2 counters at a low point. But then it could have a really good high. Flashback, spell costs X less to cast, where X is the greatest mana value of a commander you own on the battlefield or in the command zone. So definitely not using, well, you can use it outside commander, I suppose. And then I guess you just don't have any discount. And then it's just 10. Okay. Yeah, the card amuses me. I would play this. I don't know where I would play it, but I'd play it. Visions of Dread. Is there a whole series of these visions? With reflective art? So I can look in water and see things? I would like that direction. I hope that's a thing. Target opponent puts a creature card of their choice from their graveyard onto the battlefield under your control. There's a lot of weird things you could get with that. You'd have to have a pretty graveyard manipulative deck, but in kind of a low power game, it could be fun to grab random stuff too. And then the flashback, same as the previous one with the discounted flashback, but otherwise would be really high. Seems okay. I'm not super thrilled with this card. I like the series and the art direction, but I think it's interesting. I don't know if it would make a final cut for me. So, Visions of Duplicity. Oh, this one doesn't have the water reflective art. It has a reflection, but I liked the water stuff going on. Guess there's a whole series of these things, though. Exchange control of 2 target creatures you don't control. I guess if you swap 2 commanders, it would be annoying for 2 people. Other than that, how does this card help me as a player move forward in my game state? It seems more like a push my opponents behind me, but I'm not actually getting ahead. I'm not real sure on this one. We have Visions of Glory. So in this case, our reflective surface seems to be this shiny shield. I guess I don't know, maybe saying they must have water in the art would have been too much. It would go to produce some really weird art for some of these. So the last of all costs 3, this one costs 5. Is that because it's a white card? Create a 1/1 human creature token for each creature you control. So if you don't control any creatures, and you draw this card, it doesn't do anything, and still costs 5. If you control 3 creatures, you would pay 5 for 3 creatures. Then you'd have 6 total. It doesn't discount, it doesn't care if they're tokens or non-tokens that you already have on the battlefield. So if you're in a token strategy and you haven't been board wiped, you could double your board essentially. But this card seems like a high risk, high reward style card to me. It'd probably be fun when it works, but I think there's a lot of times it wouldn't. So I'd be worried about paying 5 for something that essentially can be completely turned off. Ooh, here's another reflective card that I like. So we have Visions of Ruin, and then we've got this werewolf reflected in this shiny silver dish, which he probably can't touch because it's probably actually silver. So I think that's cool. Each opponent sacrifices an artifact. For each artifact sacrificed this way, make a treasure. Nice, straightforward. It could have moments in the game where it might do nothing if nobody has an artifact. It can definitely be reacted to. So if your opponent has a bunch of treasures, clues, and food, they could just activate all those abilities in response and not have artifacts left over to sacrifice in this way to create a treasure token, because then they would have been sacrificed in a different way, so then they don't count. So this is another one of those higher risk, high rewards. It's more likely your opponents will have artifacts than you'll have creatures. That's, I think, a strong possibility. So I don't know why the cards that have the lower risk also have the lower mana cost. I just feel like that's weird. Overall, I feel like this is a playable card, especially if you're in some sort of a theme that either involves sacrificing artifacts or making treasures, or potentially still flashback would be alright as a theme here. Alright, I guess we're going to end the single series on cards that I probably still can't pronounce. We have Wilhelt, the Rot Cleaver. This is my very best guess here. I looked at all those letters and said, oh boy, that's going to be a challenge. but it is a 3/3 zombie warrior. Whenever another zombie you control dies, if it didn't have decayed, then you get one with decayed. So if he's out here and you use like Rise of the Dark Realms, or no, not Rise of the Dark Realms. What's that card? It's from Innistrad. It's got flashback. It makes like 13 zombies or something from under the floorboards, maybe. I don't know. There's one that makes a whole bunch of zombies. They come in tapped, by the way. That tiny little word's hidden on there. Beginning of your end step, you may sacrifice a zombie if you do draw a card. So this would pair great with all these cards in the past that have made zombies. So I like how this looks as a potential zombie leader. I don't know if I want to build a zombie tribal deck. I'm trying to think of those things I could do with this outside of zombie tribal. Could I just make a more aristocrat style deck where I create zombies and sacrifice zombies, not for the sake of making zombies bigger, but for the sake of triggering aristocrat stuff and drawing cards and having a sacrifice engine built on him? I think that would be a nice sub-direction to take this kind of a card. It seems like a good card for me because it's inspiring me to think about it, and I like that. Alright, this is the last thing those orders came with is tokens, so I've actually got where am I positioned? There we go. There's a whole bunch of spiffy tokens here. All the tokens that would have come with the set. Hey, a spider token. Neat, I can add that to my spider binder. Do tokens come in foil in those collector's things? Can I get a foil spider? Emblems. I'm gonna build it myself panorama. What kind of panorama do we have? Or is it too faint to tell? Looks like it's... It reminds me of some of the land art. I went off the camera, didn't I? So I see pumpkins and hay and some briar patches, so it looks like a landscape of a farm. So that's cool. So we're gonna cut the video and move on to cracking open some commander decks, and I'll take a look through those. Last bit of the video, if you made it this far, like, seriously, congratulations. This was long. But we're gonna crack open a commander decks here and just kind of rifle through and see what's in there. I'm not gonna review every card because this video is like long enough and we've already looked at the specialty ones. Don't really need all this packaging. Although I like these little cube boxes. I don't use them for anything, but I think they're cool looking boxes. I prefer my bolder boxes. Except for I do still have a copy of Counterpunch that used to live in its cardboard box for years. It was in perfect fits, so it fit in that old cardboard box. Plastics. Let's see what's in a commander deck. a funky smell is in there. These foils, they're foily, but they seem to lack strong color. Okay, I remember these two. I rated you as an OK commander for a combat tricks deck, and you as a utility card. Oh, what else is in here? We've got... Okay, so we've got some cards that were from the set, and then some reprint cards from random stuff. Pretty stapley. Witness, Beast Within, Yavimaya Elder, Signet, and a Soul Ring. I should probably keep that Swiftfoot Boots. I tended to get rid of most of them. I have like one. I don't know where they all went. Oh, I don't recognize this card. Different power among creatures that... Oh. Maybe I remember this card from somewhere. The White Curse. Lots of curses came back with this set. It's hard to look at white cards for me. It's just not my thing. Very human, except this is a random tree folk. More stuff, more board wipes. Hopefully they avoid your own stuff, because this seems very creature dependent, so you don't want to blow up your own creatures. Meekus. Roderick. I like this card as a nice surprise. I think I've used this before to surprise Indestructible. For some reason I thought that would be a werewolf. Do you think they put werewolves in either of these? It's a werewolf themed set, right? Orchard. Lands that generally don't make the cut. Oof, hate Temple of the False God. It always comes out at the wrong time. I finally stopped playing it because it was so frustrating. Oh, this is that weird thick card. Here's some more tokens. Guess I'll have a good collection of tokens. Should probably keep those. Seems like a generic green-white human counters deck with some stuff in it. Guess that's fine. It's totally off camera. Where's on camera? There's my camera. Let's see what's in this one. So we had green-white in that one, and this one we've got blue-black. Alright, so you I rated as a nice commander, and you I think I also put as a utility card. Ooh, I needed a new Distant Melody, that's handy. Cards. Did I need another Lord of the Accused? I don't remember. I might have. Spark Reaper. This is going to sound weird, but I actually had to hunt down a copy of this card for, I believe, a Pauper deck. I didn't have one, and I couldn't figure out why. It is actually a useful card. Standard artifact package. Although maybe it's a good thing that they're putting these talismans from original Mirrodin back in. I hear people look for those. Another Bajuka Bog. Ooh, a Tainted Isle. Blue things. Seems alright so far. Crowded Crypt. Whenever a creature you control dies, put a corpse counter on it. Creates a zombie. Where did this card come from? Is this unique to the new set? Turtle zombie. Is it a zombie? It is a zombie. I could see me... Oh, Army of the Damned. That was the card I was trying to think of earlier that makes all the zombies with the flashback and the 13 and the hidden word of tapped on it. Butcher Malakir is a fun card. So, this deck is full of cards I like. That's for sure. Possibly because it's full of black cards. I tend to like those. There's a lot of cards I play. I'm not usually into the zombie tribal thing, but maybe I should try it out at some point. Lands. See what our swamp art looks like. The swamp. They're all the same land. Super thick card. Zombie tokens. Did they give us 13 of them since we have to make 13 tap zombies? And they all have decayed. Are these zombies on the back? Okay, there's zombies on the back. There's no way we can make 13 zombies. That did not give us enough tokens. Most of them have decayed on them, like I want to make those. I want to make the good zombies that don't die. So that's it. We made it to the end. If you made it to the end, here's a code for you. You can have this code. I didn't use this code, so you can have it. It's your reward for making it all the way to the end of this video that went on forever. Congratulations. This was the longest thing I have ever filmed. We'll see if I can find ways to shortcut stuff when I do this again for Crimson Vow, but that probably won't be a while. So, if you made it, thanks. You're amazing.